to They Said We Said. This is John, bringing you our weekly spoiler review of American Gods. This one's for episode 2, The Secret of Spoons. The Secret of Spoons. Is that like The Secret of Nim? So tonight I'm just kicking back, trying a new beer. This is a Shiner Cold Brew Coffee Ale. I don't know, we'll see how it is. I don't know if it's important for you guys to see me pouring it or not. That's kind of more for the the Beer Geek channels, but whatever. Beer pouring, am I right? That's actually pretty good. Anyways, so on to the review. So as I failed to really mention last week that episode 1 of American Gods, The Bone Orchard, was directed by David Slade, as well as this episode was also directed by David Slade. David Slade is a pretty phenomenal director, given the right thing to direct. I'm a big fan of his adaptation of the comic book 30 Days a Night. That was a very original, very different, very brutal, violent vampire movie. That one's set up in Alaska. If you haven't checked that movie out, definitely watch it. Even if you're not a vampire fan, so to speak, but just a horror genre fan, that is a actually underrated and phenomenal movie. However, he also directed Eclipse, the third installment of the Twilight franchise. I guess the guy does vampires a lot, but you know, if you even consider, you know, Twilight vampires. So, you know, whatever. Can't fault the guy. He took a paycheck.
Hated it.
As you could tell by the kind of over-the-top stylized violence of episode 1, it is very reminiscent to his days on 30 Days of Night, which I really dug. So definitely feels like a David Slade directed show. And I don't know how many shows he's going to direct. I didn't really kind of look ahead, but he definitely did episode 1, episode 2. So episode 2, we start out in 1697 on what appears to be a slave boat coming from Africa to the United States. It's looking very grim and bleak for this group of slaves, and one of them decides to pray to the almighty African god Anansi, or Anansi, to see him and his fellow, you know, brothers kind of broken out of this situation. And then we get Mr. Nancy, Orlando Jones. Man, we haven't seen him since Evolution in the 7-Up commercial days. He comes in, gives a fantastic monologue to this group of African slaves. This is, of course, a very heavy spoiler review, so here it goes. He gives a very spectacular kind of monologue and pep talk to this group of men about, you know, saying that they are black people, and they didn't even know they were black people, because to them, you know, they just thought they were people. And he just kind of explains just the persecution and just the rough time that African and African Americans are going to have to endure, you know, hundreds of years down the road. So he kind of gives them a glimpse to the future. He is the god of stories and kind of a trickster god, kind of an African version of Loki. He's known as the spider god, which it shows he's able to kind of transform into spiders, which man, that was the CGI a couple times on the spider was like, meh, but it was cool anyways. Like his spider fur and his spider form matched his kind of get up, his kind of, you know, cool little zoot suit. And man, Orlando Jones just freaking killed it. I hope to see him a lot more in this show. So he kind of talks them all in to saying, screw it, we're kind of doomed anyways, let's sink the boat. So that's just what happens. You know, he frees one slave, and that kind of dominoes into the other ones, and next thing you know, boom, the whole slave boat goes down, and he kind of climbs up onto shore. And that's how I believe it's kind of an origin story of this god, and that's how he kind of came over from Africa to the US. So all Anansi all the time. I want to see Mr. Nancy in a lot more episodes. And we go back to Shadow Moon, and as we picked up from last episode when he's kind of lynched up on a tree from the Technical Boys henchmen, and you know, we saw all the just explosions of blood and guts and gore. You know, he gets taken down. We still don't know who came to the rescue. I have my theories on it, but I'm not going to really speculate at this time. So he gets to the hospital. They do a cool little stitch-up scene or a staple scene, and then he drives over and converses with Mr. Wednesday, who he just seems kind of just like nonchalant about. He's just like, yeah, you know what? That sucked. That happened. It's probably the technical boy. I'll tell you more about that later. Rightfully so. Shadow Moon gets a little irritated with the nonchalant, attitude Mr. Wednesday's taken about this, but then he kind of assures him, "Don't take my easygoing demeanor. We're gonna get this guy back, and I am super pissed about it." I'm gonna take a quick little. It really does taste like cold brew coffee. That's not bad at all. I guess it was a collaboration with Chameleon Cold Brew Coffee. There. You want to see if anyone cares. Shiner Brewery out of Texas, whatever. It's Shadow Moon's responsibility to go to their house, him and Laura's house, to kind of clean up everything. Once everything's kind of packed up, he finally kind of looks in the corner box. He finds her wedding ring and he finds her cell phone. And we get the first of 3 dicks of the episode. There was quite a bit of penis in this episode, and something else that I learned from the episode before, if you look at the newspaper clipping of the obituary of the headline of Laura's death and Robbie's death, if you look at that picture of Robbie, it's actually Dane Cook. So maybe he comes back in a flashback, or I don't know, in some iteration later on, but we definitely got to see some pretty tall order pictures in Laura's phone. I don't think it's Dane Cook, but hey, if it is, nothing but love. I ain't hating. During this kind of, pack up scene and everything, and even a little bit before in the hotel, Shadow Moon is seeing Laura in dream sequences where she's very much alive and just kind of walking around telling him that she didn't die. But, of course he looks again and she's not there. So do I think she's probably coming back, or something happened with the coin sinking in the grave? Yeah, probably. I definitely think she's coming back. There was even some trailers that showed, kind of spoiled it. So I think the character Laura will be back in some kind of zombie form or fashion. I don't know if it's going to be sentient or not, but that'll be interesting to see. So after we pack up and get ready to go, we are now on a road trip to Chicago. And just something to note, everyone seems really fond of coin tricks. We had Leprechaun Mad Sweeney kind of picking these coins, and especially that special coin out of thin air. We have Shadow Moon, who's actually a little bit of a con man himself, kind of flicking around coins, and then he and Wednesday kind of have this conversation in the car, stating coin tricks aren't your thing, you're just kind of more of a muscle guy. The coin tricks is becoming kind of an ongoing theme in the show. It's time to pull over on our road trip, and while Wednesday is having a conversation with someone with kind of burning eyes, Shadow Moon is actually instructed to go to the Walmart store to do a little shopping. Has a shopping list. So it's when we get to the electronics section where it gets really weird, and bam, we have Lucille Ball from I Love Lucy flash on the screens and start interacting with Shadow Moon. And what we find out is that this is one of the new gods trying to recruit Shadow Moon away from Mr. Wednesday, and this is the new god Media, played by Gillian Anderson. I didn't even know that was Gillian Anderson. Gillian Anderson from X-Files. She looks like she went back in time like 20 years, and she had some real cool, witty dialogue, and she really did look like Lucille Ball, but I was like, it was not until afterwards when I was watching something that it was actually Gillian Anderson that played Media. That was crazy. That did not look like Gillian Anderson, but it was awesome. That little interaction was very cool, or she was really pulling out the stops, trying to get Shadow Moon on her side, even enticing him with maybe seeing Lucille Ball's tits for once. Maybe people have thought about it. I'm just saying. Shadow Moon's getting really freaked out at this point, and he goes back to the diner, and he's just kind of like, what the hell's going on? And Wednesday is just kind of cool, calm, and collected, dodging the questions and not giving him too many of the answers. So before we get to continue their story, that's when it flips back over to our girl, Billiquis. It's more awkward and crazy than stuffing one post-baby boomer businessman in your vagina. Well, how about like 10? How about elongating that scene and not only adding dudes, but now we're putting women up there. We're putting everyone up there. So Biliquis seems to be the god Sheba. She's an old god, and it looks like that's just kind of her new way of getting people to pray to her and believe in her, and to make her regain her youth. And she even goes as far as to go to some kind of museum where there's a very nice ornate kind of jewelry set piece that she looked like probably once belonged to her. And at this point we see that she has gone back in time quite a bit. She took the same kind of smoothie that Gillian Anderson did in real life. So Biliquis, maybe that's what Gillian Anderson's doing too. I don't know. I don't want to speculate or start rumors, but yeah, we just get more of the very stylized. Once one goes in, the candle burns out. It's going to be very interesting to see her meet up with kind of everyone else. Especially because when we get to Chicago and we get to meet the people that Wednesday is taking Shadow Moon to, we get to kind of find out that Wednesday's kind of goal is to kind of gather all the old gods together. So, maybe down the road he will be traveling to wherever Biliquis is and trying to recruit her, no matter how weird, nasty she might be. We get introduced to Cloris Leachman's character, and that is the character of Zariah. She is one of 3 sisters. Another one we get to meet. The names in this show, I apologize to everyone, the names in this show are pretty tough. And I didn't get the names of the other 2 sisters, but one other sister seems just very timid. Zariah's character and her sister are just kind of old. It just kind of reminded me of my background, my upbringing when I was little, like a Russian Jewish family where it's just a lot of cooking and a lot of once you're invited you have to stay kind of thing, which is pretty sweet. And so those 2 are kind of cooking, and they won't let anyone help. And the other sister is in her room, and it's very important that she not wake up, which is kind of crazy. So we kind of hear her voice in the background at one point, but we never get to see this third sister or what kind of form she is. And then we get the introduction to the crazy Zernabog, Turnabog, Tanabog, Billabong. Dude, I don't know. I think it's Zernabog. He is basically the dark to the light side of his brother Turnabog, and I believe Cernabog is, if you have kids or were a child at one point, and you've seen the Disney movie Fantasia, basically the demon at the end, or the devil, the gargoyle at the end, something on Quiet Mountain. He is that character. This, Czechoslovakian Russian person is that big demon, and he is that old god. So he is not very happy to see Mr. Wednesday. Could give a crap about meeting Shadow Moon, except that he's taking quite a strange interest in the fact that he is African American. So after numerous attempts to try to kick out Wednesday and Shadow Moon, he finally says, you know what, you can't leave because Zariah made you guys dinner, and that would be rude. We don't want to upset her. So we have the most awkward dinner ever since Christmas Vacation, and we get a little bit of background into the Cernabog character. We find out that since he came to America, he has been a butcher, and he took a lot of pride in what he did as far as how he killed these animals, how he would kind of brain them with this giant, 2-handed mallet that he proudly keeps on the mantle. So during this back and forth, he said he challenges Shadow Moon to a game of checkers. And so right away, Wednesday's just like, oh crap, I've seen this kind of shit before. Which he tells Shadow Moon he should probably decline, but he doesn't. A lot of vodka was drank at that dinner, so here we go into the checker scene. So this game was extremely high tension. I heard some people say that this was kind of boring and drawn out. I didn't think so. I thought it was one of the most tension-filled and exciting moments of this episode. We just kind of see more flashes of Cernabog just braining these cows, and then grabbing the hammer off the mantle and kind of massaging it, and then just boom, the thing just starts bleeding of all the past lives he's taking with this mallet, with this giant Thor-like hammer. Kind of more of like a John Henry kind of hammer. Anyway, we make a wager. Basically, if Shadow Moon beats him, then he will kind of join up and team up with Wednesday and Shadow Moon to kind of collect the rest of the old gods to I guess fight against the new gods, and he'll go willingly. However, if he wins and he defeats Shadow Moon, he gets to brain Shadow Moon with this gigantic mallet. And, you know, a lot of cigarettes are smoked, a lot of, you know, checker pieces are moved, and guess what? Shadow Moon doesn't win. And the episode ends at Cernabog just basically saying, you know what, I'll see you in the morning. I'll see you in the morning on your knees, willing, ready to take the mallet right to the forehead. So, this episode, what I really liked about this episode, it didn't feel as maybe action-packed as the first one, but there were some great scenes and some, you know, some more great setup and introductions into other gods such as Medea and Cernabog and Zoraya. And these are just like, the characters in this show are just so oozing with being interesting and just being over the top, and they're gods, they're supposed to be, but it does a great job of capturing that. And I hope you know, it's not just David Slade that could pull these performances out of these actors. So I mean, I don't know, he might direct the entire series. I think it's an eight episode series or season 1. But, you know, I just hope the ball keeps rolling with just pulling these performances out of these very amazing character actors. Things I didn't like about this episode, I'd be hard-pressed to find some things, but there was definitely one thing that kind of stood out to me in this episode especially, and that was the score. The score was, it sounded like it was either meant for a different show or a different scene, especially the drawn-out scene of Shadow Moon kind of putting everything together, all of Laura's belongings together in the moving van, him just kind of walking around the house and seeing her. The score was like really bizarre, and it just didn't match up correctly, and it kind of took me out of the scene a little bit. But this one was just so kind of out of place that it really did pull me out of the experience. But aside from that, that's it. I am hooked to this damn show. I want to see more Mr. Nancy. I want to see more Cernabog, Trenabog, Bibbog, Bebop, Rocksteady. I don't know. You know, even Cloris Leachman's character was amazing. Her accent sounded kind of horrible, but you know, it was fun. It was very whimsical and amazing. And again, Shadow Moon, Ricky Whittle's character, it just looks like everyone else is just kind of in another level show than he is, and he's just kind of trying to keep up, you know, acting wise. But you know what, it's fine. Even though he's kind of the main character, you have so much other cool, shiny, pretty awful, crazy things to look at and pay attention to that it kind of takes a little bit of the dullness out of his performance. So let's rate this thing. I'm gonna say American Gods Episode 2, The Secret of Spoons. I'm gonna give this one a 4.5 out of 5. This one jumped up from the last episode. We got some amazing characters in this episode, and really not too many hiccups in the road besides the score. So guys, thank you so much for joining me for this week's spoiler review of American Gods. I will see you next week. My name is John. You could find me on Twitter at OrzovDunn. Find me on the Facebook group at They Said We Said, and you can find me on Instagram at They Said We Said as well. We have some amazing things coming up on this channel very soon, and amazing collaborations on other channels. Namely, coming up very soon is the championship match of Dead Guys Talking Survival Trivia. That's going to be against The Walking Bread, Josh Greenhall, and Alex Scott versus Rad Entertainment, and that's against Dan Murphy and Rebecca Erb. And they've been very busy on Rad Entertainment, and please go check out and subscribe to their other two channels, Rad Movies and Rad Games. So once again, my name is John, and I will see you next week.